The Anderson family reunion was in full swing, the backyard of my parents' suburban home filled with the usual suspects. Uncles bragging about their business deals, aunts comparing their children's achievements, and my cousins, all traditionally successful with their corporate jobs, holding court near the expensive grill they'd bought my father last Christmas. I stood by the refreshment table quietly checking sales figures on my phone. Black Friday weekend was approaching and my e-commerce platform Nova Retail was preparing for our biggest season yet. "Still playing with your little online shop, Megan?" I looked up to see my cousin Peter smirking at me, his company logo proudly displayed on his polo shirt. Anderson's Department Stores, the family's retail chain that had been struggling ever since online shopping became popular. "Someone has to keep up with the times," I replied mildly, slipping my phone into my pocket. No need to let him see that my little online shop had processed over $50 million in sales last month alone. "Real retail requires real stores," he scoffed. "Real inventory, real employees. Not just some website selling Chinese knockoffs." If only he knew that Nova Retail had 5 massive fulfillment centers across the country, employed over 1,000 people, and worked directly with manufacturers to create exclusive product lines. But I'd learned long ago to keep my success quiet. It was more entertaining this way. Speaking of real stores, my Aunt Margaret joined us, wine glass in hand. "Peter just opened Anderson's 15th location. Isn't that wonderful?" I nodded, thinking about the market research on my laptop showing that Anderson's department stores had lost 40% of their market share to online competitors in the past 3 years. Competitors like Nova Retail. "You know, Megan," she continued, her voice dripping with false concern, "Peter might be able to find you a real job at one of the stores. Something in inventory perhaps. It would be more stable than selling things on the internet." The irony almost made me laugh. Last week, I'd signed the lease on a 6th fulfillment center, one that would double our processing capacity. Meanwhile, Anderson's was quietly closing stores while pretending to expand. "Thanks, Aunt Margaret, but I'm doing fine." "Fine." My Uncle George wandered over, catching the tail end of our conversation. "Honey, you're 32 living in a rented apartment playing shopkeeper on the internet. That's not fine." I thought about my penthouse condo and the beach house I'd bought last summer. The private jet share I used for business trips. The 8-figure acquisition offer I'd turned down last month because it was too low. "The world is changing," I said instead. "Online retail is the future." That set them off. The next 20 minutes were filled with lectures about real business, traditional values, and the importance of physical stores. My other cousins drifted over, eager to join in the mockery of Megan's misguided internet venture. "You can't build a real business without seeing your customers face to face," Peter insisted. I thought about Nova's 12 million active users and our 98% satisfaction rating. "A website isn't a legacy," Uncle George declared. "Anderson's has been in this family for 3 generations. True. And it was about to enter its 4th. Just not the way they expected." "At least get a part-time job," Aunt Margaret pleaded. "Something to fall back on when this internet thing fails." I checked my phone again. Another $200,000 in sales in the past hour. Some failure. The conversation eventually moved on to more important topics, like Peter's new yacht or the country club membership my uncle had just secured. I drifted away to the quiet corner of the garden, opening my laptop to check on some final details. "Miss Anderson?" My assistant's message popped up. "The documents are ready for review." "Perfect timing," I typed back. "Send them to legal for final approval. We move forward tomorrow." What my family didn't know was that their precious Anderson's department stores was in serious trouble. Their outdated business model, resistance to e-commerce, and bloated overhead had left them vulnerable. Their stock price had dropped 60% in the past year. I'd been watching, waiting, quietly buying shares through shell companies. Tomorrow they would receive an email that would shake their comfortable world to its core. "Hey, internet girl," Peter called out. "We're taking a family photo. Try to look professional for once." I closed my laptop, smoothing my simple sundress. They had no idea that it cost more than Peter's entire wardrobe. Not that I'd ever tell them that. The family gathered around the expensive grill, arranging themselves like royalty. Uncle George in the center, Peter and his siblings flanking him, everyone wearing their success like armor. "Megan, maybe stand in the back," Aunt Margaret suggested. "And do put that phone away." We want this to look respectable. I took my place, hiding my smile. Tomorrow they would learn exactly what my little online shop had become. Tomorrow the Anderson family business would face its biggest challenge yet. And it would come from the cousin they'd never taken seriously. As the camera flashed, I made a mental note to keep this photo. It would be perfect for the About Us section of Nova Retail's website. Once we owned Anderson's department stores. After all, family businesses should keep family photos, shouldn't they? The next morning I sat in my penthouse office, watching the sun rise over the city. My laptop displayed the email that would change everything. The official takeover offer from Nova Retail to Anderson's department stores. Send it, I told my assistant over the phone. Already done, she replied. Your uncle should be receiving it any moment. Board meeting is scheduled for 10 a.m. I smiled, imagining the chaos unfolding at Anderson's corporate headquarters. They'd been so busy mocking online retail that they'd never noticed who was buying their struggling company's shares. My phone rang exactly 7 minutes later. What is this? Uncle George's voice shook with rage. Nova Retail? Some internet company thinks they can buy us out. Good morning, Uncle George, I replied calmly. I take it you received our offer? Our. He paused. What do you mean our? Perhaps you should check the signature block on that email. A moment of silence, then the sound of furious clicking. Megan Anderson, CEO and founder of Nova Retail. He read aloud, his voice dropping to a whisper. This is impossible. Is it? Because according to your company's quarterly reports, which, by the way, are quite concerning, Nova Retail already owns 26% of Anderson's shares. We've been buying them quietly for months while your stock price plummeted. You're lying, he sputtered. That little website of yours couldn't possibly. That little website did $1.2 billion in sales last year. I cut him off. We have 5 fulfillment centers, are building a 6th, and our market valuation is 10 times what Anderson's is worth right now. Would you like me to share our financials at the board meeting? The line went dead. I checked my watch. 3, 2, 1. My phone lit up with messages. Peter, this is a joke, right? Aunt Margaret, please call me immediately. 3 cousins, we need to talk. I ignored them all, instead pulling up the live security feed from Anderson's headquarters. The lobby was chaos. Family members arriving in various states of panic. Peter's Tesla screeching into his reserved parking spot. Aunt Margaret's Mercedes nearly hitting a pole. At 9:59 a.m. I walked into their boardroom. The security guards, who now worked for me, though they didn't know it yet, nodded respectfully as I passed. What is she doing here? Peter demanded as I entered. I sat at the head of the table, opening my briefcase. I believe the CEO of Nova Retail should be present for this discussion, don't you? You. Aunt Margaret's perfectly maintained composure cracked. You're behind this? Amazing what you can build with just a website, isn't it? I started distributing documents. Now, let's discuss the reality of your situation. I clicked a button, and the room's screens came to life with Anderson's real financial data. Not the optimistic versions they showed at family gatherings, but the brutal truth. Your revenue has dropped 60% in 3 years. Commerce is destroying your market share. You've quietly closed 3 stores while pretending to expand. And your attempt to launch a website. I pulled up their pathetic online platform. Well, let's just say it's not exactly competitive. This is ridiculous. Peter stood up, his face red. Yesterday you were nobody and now you think. Yesterday. I laughed. Yesterday I processed more sales before lunch than your flagship store does in a month. Yesterday my little online shop acquired 2 smaller competitors. Yesterday I signed a lease on a fulfillment center bigger than all your remaining stores combined. I turned to Uncle George, who sat silent and pale at the other end of the table. Remember when you said websites aren't a legacy? Well, Nova Retail is about to become your legacy's only hope for survival. What do you want? He finally asked. Total acquisition. We'll maintain the Andersons name. It has recognition value with older customers. Most store employees will keep their jobs, though they'll need retraining for our integrated online-offline model. And management? Peter asked weakly. Will be revised. Though I might find you an entry-level position in our fulfillment center. You did say real retail needs real inventory, right? Aunt Margaret started to speak, but I held up my hand. Before anyone else tries to dismiss this offer, you should know two things. First, I already control enough shares to force major changes. And second, I pulled up another screen showing their competitors' stock prices. 3 other companies are preparing hostile takeover bids. My offer is the only one that keeps the Anderson name. The room fell silent as the reality sank in. Their precious family business was dying, and their only salvation was the cousin they'd mocked at yesterday's reunion. The offer expires at 5 p.m. I stood up, smoothing my designer suit. No simple sundress today. Though given your cash flow problems, I doubt you can afford to wait that long. How? Uncle George's voice cracked. How did you build all this without us knowing? Because you never bothered to look. You were too busy protecting your real business from the future to notice that the future was sitting at your family reunion, checking sales figures on her phone. I walked to the door, then turned back. Oh, and Peter? About that comment regarding Chinese knockoffs. Our products are actually manufactured in our own facilities. In fact, we supply inventory to several of your high-end brands. You'd know that if you ever actually checked your sourcing documents. The acquisition made headlines. E-commerce giant Nova Retail acquires historic Anderson's department stores. The business world was fascinated by the story of the overlooked cousin who bought her family's company. Uncle George retired rather than work for me. Peter tried to negotiate an executive position but ended up taking a job with a competitor, a smaller one that Nova hadn't acquired yet. Aunt Margaret stopped speaking to me entirely, though she still cashes the dividends from the shares I let her keep. Anderson's stores were transformed into modern retail hubs, combining online convenience with in-person shopping experiences. Sales doubled in the first year. The family name lived on, just not the way they'd planned. I kept their boardroom exactly as it was, though I added one decoration. A framed photo from that last family reunion. Everyone gathered around the grill looking successful and superior, while I stood in the back checking my phone, probably processing more sales in that moment than their stores did all day. Last week, I received an invitation to next year's family reunion. The location? The country club where Uncle George used to brag about his membership. The one Nova Retail now owns. I think I'll attend. After all, someone needs to explain to them how playing shopkeeper on the internet really works. Though this time I suspect they'll listen when I talk about the future of retail. Sometimes the best revenge isn't just proving people wrong. It's becoming so successful that they have to work for you. Or in my family's case, becoming so successful that you own their entire legacy. As for my little online shop, we just opened our 7th fulfillment center. It's in the building that used to be Anderson's flagship store. I kept their sign, though I added a small plaque beneath it. An Anderson's store, a Nova Retail company. Building the future they couldn't see. Sometimes success is the sweetest revenge. Especially when it's delivered right to their inbox.